Awesome. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm Lani Mott, and I'm a senior UX strategist at a company called Education Dynamics. And I've had a really interesting journey into UX and UI. And I used to be a music teacher for about 7 years. So did the whole traditional college bachelor's degree, and I taught K to 12 music in private schools. And clearly that can come with a lot of burnout if you're really spreading yourself thin.
Right.
And yeah, so then COVID hit and I was really trying to change careers, but I needed a job in the meantime. So then I was a paralegal at a local law firm for 2 years, and now I'm in UX.
Nice. So tell me a little bit more about that kind of like transition period. So around COVID, you decided to transition out of education, you got paralegal job. At what point did you decide like maybe the paralegal thing wasn't forever, right? And that you wanted to do something else? And how did you figure out that that something else was UX, UI design?
Definitely. So it actually even began kind of even before the pandemic hit. I'd say like a year before, I was really starting to feel the toll of just all of the physical and emotional stress that my job was putting on me. And so I kind of started looking actually into copywriting at first, because I've always been like a really strong writer, and I was looking for something that could really allow me more flexibility with my life. Maybe starting my own business, gaining clients. But it was just kind of hard for me to follow that more free-form structure. And I just really felt like just writing seems kind of boring. Like there's nothing really visual in it, since I'm really like more of a creative. And that kind of just fizzled. Like it started and then it fizzled out. So then I left that alone, and then pandemic hit. And I was like, I wish I could still do something in the like ed space. So I was looking at remote jobs that were in the ed space, but then I kept popping up on this tech job called like UX UI. And I'm like, what is this thing? Like, what is this? Like it was pure curiosity. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I just started Googling. You know how that goes. Like you look on YouTube and it's like day in the life of a UX person. And I was just really intrigued by it. And I thought, hey, I could really see myself doing this. Like I'm super collaborative. I like creativity, but I still need like a structure or a process or some type of, kind of best practice to follow. So I thought this might be a really good fit for me, because it wasn't as like ambiguous as like copywriting, and it was visual as well. But I was slightly intimidated, because I was like, I have no design experience. I've always, thought it was cool and was interested, but that just scared me completely to do any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely understandable. So that's really interesting. You just were looking for remote education jobs, and Google ads machines like kind of fed to you another opportunity, which is really cool. So you found out what UX was, and started to figure out, maybe I could do this looks interesting, kind of like your skills match up. Before you decided to start doing it, right, or start learning it, what was your process? Did you look at like, doing it yourself? Did you look at boot camps or traditional education, like degrees? Did you talk to anyone? What was that like decision-making process like? We get a lot of people probably listening to this right now that are like not sure to take the next step. So I'd love to kind of dive into like, what made you say, yes, I'm going to start learning this?
Right. So the big thing, once I kind of realized this was a path I wanted to take, I really saw the education route like within 3 buckets, right? So I saw there's a self-taught route. I saw there's the bootcamp route, which is very popular. And then I saw there's like the master's route as well. I was already like married at this point, so I knew whatever choice I wanted to make, I kind of needed to like do my research and like make some kind of proposal to my husband to be like, hey, I've done my research and this is a method I think is best for me. So at least being a teacher, I understand my learning style. So yeah. I was like, okay, I did this self-taught thing for the copywriting, at least like one course I took, but it was more like at your own pace. And I figured that was not for me. Like I need someone who's a professional to tell me what I don't know. And I don't have time to source the information to know what I need to know. So to me, that was immediately an elimination. The second thing was I started looking at boot camps, and obviously there's such a huge range of prices and lengths of courses. I looked at Career Foundry, I look at General Assembly, and I'm like, these are at least like $7,000 to $15,000. And this was like in 2021. So this was even years ago. So I don't even know what they are costing now. So then I guess just through the Googling, that's how I came upon Avocademy. And I had seen the website and I was like, oh, like the course is pretty affordable. And there also is that case study that you get at the end to start your portfolio. So that's a really great value compared to other courses that are way higher priced. And then they don't have that unlimited mentorship. So that was the biggest thing for me. Like I was like, I need mentorship. Like I definitely want that in my program. And then the master's degree, I was like, I don't want to have to go back to school, like for real, like even though I'm a teacher, I don't like school. Like I want to do it, learn it, apply it right away as soon as I can. I know it might take me a while to learn it, but I will learn it eventually. So that's how Course Report was actually how I found Avocademy, and it had
Nice.
stars, but I was like, oh, there's maybe only about like 20 reviews, but let me just check it out anyways.
Yeah, that's great. I was about to ask you why not like the master's degree, but you covered that. So you found us on Course Report early days because this was 2021, right? Yeah, so we started 2020, like June 2020 was when we launched like our first cohort. So you found us super early days. We're still close to a 5-star review. We have a 4.89 on Course Report and almost 300 reviews now. But cool. So you found us. Did you talk to anybody on our team, or did you just like sign up? What was that process like?
Yeah, now that I think about it, I did actually. I think it was Carla who had reached out and she had texted me because I'm not sure what campaign or email funnel I got into, but somehow you guys have my info. So she had texted me and I said, she answered some of my very specific questions. You know, we like to know metrics, like how many people have graduated, who's in a job, and, you know, things that are a little, you know, more interesting to keep track of when you're just starting off because you're figuring out the process of your company, obviously. So I said, hey, I'm going to wait till this point, you know, once I have this money, but, you know, I'm ready to sign up. So then I was waiting till like November of 2021 to start up. That's kind of the time my husband and I figured financially would be best. But we were like, you know what, since it's going to take several weeks anyways, we might as well just get into it. Like we do have the money now, like it's okay. So then I signed up in September of 2021.
Nice. So you took the leap September 2021. Take us through some like timeline dates. So you did foundation starting then. How long did it take you to finish? So some people finish, you know, within 8 weeks, some finish 16, some take much longer. Where were you in terms of like the length to completion of the first program, and how did you, most importantly, I think, how did you feel during it? Because I think it's very different to do a bunch of research and be like, this is for me, and then you start and sometimes you're like, oh shit, like was it for me or did I make the wrong decision, you know? Clearly you did it because of where you are now, but like how did it feel like in the moment, if you remember?
Man, you know, honestly, I have to say, like, day one, when I had my first mentor call, it was with Vlad. He's not with you anymore, but it was crazy because the funny thing is Vlad and I were chatting. We're like, yeah, we're both in Florida, you know, and we find out we're actually in the same town, which was super weird because like Palm Coast is such a small like town compared to the rest of Florida. I was like, what? So we were chatting and I was pitching him my ideas for my case study. And he's like, oh yeah, you'll be fine. Like, I'm not worried about you in this career. And just to know like someone for his caliber and his experience was like saying that, I just felt really like flattered and really at peace. I was like, this, you know, someone who's clearly in the game and in the business is saying like, I'll be fine, even though I'm like, I don't know anything yet. That gave me a lot of confidence. I was like, okay, I think I can do this. Like, I was obviously a little nervous, but moving forward, like every step of the way, I was like, this is so cool. I was just eating it up. Like, I was like, this is great. I was working a full-time job. Like I was at the law firm, like I said. So I'm like literally learning an entire new job or day job or profession that I had no idea about. It was like just a job for me. So I'm like learning that. And then at the same time, I'm learning everything like UX and UI. And I'm just like trying to soak it all in as much as possible. And like, honestly, I saw law and I was like, it's a, reliable field and industry, but I was like, this is not me at all. Like,
Yeah.
this is not me. Like, I was like, I can't do this all day, every day. So I was so motivated to like get through with it. And it took me, I would say from September, maybe to like December to do it. Because I was working full time, but I wasn't slacking. Like it was just taking me a while to just get through. I'd say like wireframing, like that was the toughest for me. Like my first time with designing, like there was a lot of back feedback. I was like, oh man, like I was feeling like it was a challenge, but I wasn't totally discouraged. I was like, okay, just fix one thing at a time. Like you're learning, this is what learning's about. So, but yeah, all in all, like there was definitely days where it was, challenging, but I never felt like this isn't for me. Like I was like, I will get a job in this. Like I was just so confident that I could do it successfully.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's something so special about like finding a career or field that like makes you excited and you're not like dreading the like, I'm going to sit down and do this type of feeling. And it's so hard to explain, but I feel like when I transitioned into UX, I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to actually enjoy your job, right? Like, this is what it feels to actually be excited about like what I'm going to do tomorrow at work, right? The problem I'm going to solve or the person I'm going to talk to. I still haven't figured out how to like express that and communicate to people that haven't gone through the transition. But when I have these conversations with folks, like, it's great to kind of hear that, like I knew it was for me. I'm like doing it, I'm not giving up on it. So that's awesome. You finished foundations around December. You joined CJ, right? Was that in January or did you take a little bit of a break? Like what did the rest of kind of the path, your learning path look like?
Right. I believe I started, if I remember, maybe finished up everything, maybe even actually like early January, now that I think about it, for foundations. And then I think I took like 1 or 2 weeks off and then I went right into CJ February 1st. So like 100%, I do remember that was when I started.
Why did you decide to join Career Jumpstart? And I asked that because I feel like I know you now from, the last year and a half now. And you are pretty self-driven and like, you do the things you set out to do. And some people ask if it's possible to do without Career Jumpstart, which it very much is, right? Like you could have gone and like found some freelance projects and like finished your portfolio and just like applied for jobs yourself. Why did you, like, on a personal level, decide, yeah, I'm going to do Career Jumpstart instead of kind of like, okay, I've learned what I need to learn, let me just do the rest and find a job?
Right. So 2 big reasons for that are time, number one. So freelancing takes so much time to have to like manage your own business, to manage your own clients, to manage the billing of that. It's literally starting a business. And that is something I did not have the time for. Like I was working 4 days a week. I'm married. I have, volunteer responsibilities. Like I'm a busy person and time was not of of my luxury that I had. So the other thing too was also the format and the style of it. So I knew that being in CJ would allow me to collaborate and work on teams, which from what I understood, from what prospective job seekers are looking for, is people who do have that team experience or who've had the opportunity to work with an engineer at least once or a product manager. And I knew I would get that with CJ. So to me, it was like a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, of course, like everything is already laid out for me. The client's already chosen. All I have to do is the work itself and then add it to my portfolio.
Cool. Yeah, that's helpful. And I keep hearing kind of the same thing, right? Like it was like the fastest path to success, and that like collaboration as well. So tell us a little bit more about your experience in CJ. Did you do 1 project, 2 projects, 3 projects? What was something surprising about working in teams or not surprising about working in teams? Feel free to be completely honest. And then maybe walk us through your job search. Like, what did that look like? Was it miserable? Was it like worse than you expected, better than you expected?
Honestly, I think Career Jumpstart was the hardest for me because of the work involved. I would say the last project I think was the toughest. So I did 3 projects. One was for like an e-commerce marketing company. One was actually for like an education consulting company, which I loved. I was like, this is awesome. This is like right up my alley in my own experience. And then the last one was for you, for Avocademy and the, you know, the job searching automation. So I was working a lot. Like I would wake up at like 6 a.m. before my job and I would do some work, do design work. I'd be just sitting on my computer. Like my husband has pictures of me in this little nook, like doing my work. I would come home. I was not really exercising that much during that time, literally come home 5:30, and I get right to work. And I would take a quick dinner break and keep working probably till like 11 or midnight. There was like 1 or 2 nights it was like 2, 3 a.m. like to like make a deadline. But I actually really enjoyed being on the team because I didn't feel so like alone, like, oh, I have to do this journey alone in my little silo when I was in foundations. So my first team was like amazing because it was really like, I think all of our first project, but there was another girl, like some of them were doing 2 at a time and I could not, I can only do 1 at a time. So that was a really nice bonding experience, I think, for all of us, even outside of just like, you know, the work, but like as professionals, like, hey, we're here to support each other. And it was all girls. So we kind of had a lot of fun, like just being together and really encouraging one another in this journey. And so that was really special. And the last 2, like I just had great groups like for the whole time. And then I was the lead for the last project, which honestly, I was like, I hope I'm not the lead because it's so much work and I feel so stressed. And then Maga's like, you're the lead. I'm like, okay, I'll do this. I just had a feeling. I was like, she might make me lead, but I was like, okay, I'm up for the challenge. Yeah, and that one was tough because we kind of had some deadlines where we were trying to get things in on time, and you know, we were all just trying to work together, and everyone was like really intense on like wanting to get things done and wanting to make sure all the details were right, and we all had this vision we're trying to like pull together. But it was such a great experience and I would do it again if I had to.
Nice. I want to share, as of yesterday, as of this morning, the job search automation functionality and tool that you all designed is actually a physical living product.
What?
Yeah, I took all the logic you all had kind of like put together, the questions and everything, and like built the back end of it. So now I'm testing it for like the rest of this week. And then I'm going to have the front end developer kind of build out the experience that you had done, like of actually filling out the form and, you know, all of that information. But we're getting to a really good place where it's like just applying to jobs automatically. But I won't say too much on this call, but I'll share afterwards with you. So yeah, I'm glad you all did that project because it's turning out really, really, really cool. Awesome. So you did 3 projects. You started applying for jobs. How was that? How long did finding a job take? How many jobs did you apply to, if you want to share that? And then what was interviewing like?
I think I applied to around like 250 plus, somewhere between 250 and 260. And it took me 36 days to get a job. And probably between recruiter calls, second round calls, and then final interview, I'd say between 12 and 15 interviews, but majority of those being, you know, recruiter or screening calls as well.
Right.
And then obviously like with the current company that I'm at, I had a call first, which was interesting because it's a marketing agency for higher education. So the VP of marketing, she actually reached out to me on LinkedIn. So it was literally no effort of my own. But at first I honestly was like, I don't know, like the salary is just slightly lower than what I want it to be, but it's in education. Like it's what I said I wanted to be in. Like I was interested in doing ed, even legal, because I already had the background in it. Or anything that was like fitness, you know, things that I was more passionate about. I just could not be in an industry that I had no passion about. Like there was one industry that I knew someone else from CJ got that job, but it was like a packing and shipping company or like automation. And I was like, this is so boring to me. Like this is not it. So I didn't even really try that hard in the interview, to be quite honest. Like I was like, I'm not interested. as sad as it sounds, like you should take every opportunity, but I did the interview as professionally, but I was just not interested. Like my heart was not in it. So she reached out to me and I had an interview with her, and then I had a recruiter interview, and then I had a design challenge that I needed to complete before my final interview. And I was slightly intimidated by it. And it was like, oh, it should only take you like 2 to 3 hours to do this, design challenge.
Yeah, they always say that.
I took a day off from work. I think it took me 10 hours to do it at least. And I did a little work on it the day before. So probably between like 10 to 15 hours. But I did take advantage of like the mentor opportunity to talk about the design challenge, like through CJ. Like each interview, like I did like a debrief, obviously a mock interview before I had my interview. I did a debrief. So I just took advantage, which was like so critical. Like I couldn't have done it without that support.
Yeah. I think you're like the perfect student that like uses the resources. I like to say it's like a buffet, right? Like there's so many things you can take advantage of in CJ, and some folks are like, I keep messing up my second round. And I'm like, how many mock interviews have you done? None. And I'm just like, it's there, unlimited. Like, just book it, like just do it. So I'm really glad that you used that and it ended, successfully. Tell us a little bit more. So you get the job, you start the job, imposter syndrome, yes, no, like how was that? And then kind of like take us to now, right? Like how long has it been, and how has your job changed, or your attitude towards work, or how you feel about it?
Right. So obviously super nervous starting the first job. But I seemed to really click with the manager. What was interesting, I just want to backtrack real quick. When I thought I had a final interview, with the team, the recruiter said, oh, the manager wants to have like just a casual conversation, like you and her, before they make their decision. I'm like, sure, that's great. But to me, it didn't feel as casual. Like it was like, she's like, oh, I'll ask you some like UX related questions. I'll say my answer. You say your answer. I'll say my answer. So it was conversational, but the questions were still like interview style. So I was like, oh, okay, this is like another like final interview.
Yeah.
So I was like a little nervous, but I did feel confident about that. And I felt like we had good chemistry. And my manager, she seemed like younger, like closer to my age. So I felt like, okay, there could be some relatability there. So honestly, from day one, I felt fully supported by her, which I know, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that experience. So that was off the jump, like first impression, I'm like, wow, like really supportive environment here with this company. So first started off, and like right off the bat, like had to like redesign, a landing page. I have one client that I work with. Like we work with lots of universities and colleges, but I just have one assigned to me based on like the size of the university that it is. So I had to learn XD, like Adobe XD right away. So I'm like, oh, great. I just learned Figma. Like I just learned it. Like I'm still a beginner at it. And now I have to learn this other software. So that was really probably the most stress that I had felt at the beginning, because the feel of it was just so different. Like all of the setup is like the same as, Figma, so to speak. There's no auto layout. They have their own thing that they do. But I did take hours outside of work to like get better at that and get better at it. So I would say that was probably where I felt, I wouldn't really call it imposter syndrome. It was just a knowledge gap that I had. Like I didn't have that of XD. And I felt like because I had the tools and training as this framework to like set up myself for success, like I could teach myself this platform as well. And like my manager walked me through it with the basics, and then just, I learned the rest of it on my own and just had to get used to that skill. So that was for me at the beginning.
I went through kind of something similar when I started one of my jobs. I was really familiar with Sketch, and they were using Adobe XD, and I had never used XD before. And XD is one of the it's the least best user experience out of the three kind of main software. So there's some things you kind of have to get used to. But I think it goes to show how similar the programs are, that like your manager, you didn't have that experience and like hired you anyway. Like it's not typically a deal breaker to not know one of the design softwares, because like the knowledge you have of design is like so different. It's separate from the software. The software is kind of how you execute on it. And we never know, like in a year or two, if a new software is going to pop up and we'll all have to learn it, right? But it's great that you were able to like dive in and learn it and feel comfortable with it. Do you all still use XD?
So actually, not really. So what's been really exciting is that my university, they actually have their own like UX team actually, and a director. Since we're like an agency, we help them with conversion rate optimization and UX, and we make like recommendations to them. So we're kind of like a consultant to them, and like, hey, implement this, change this and that. So since they actually now are about to like launch their new design system and a new website, I've now been able to access that like recently within the past month. So I'm in Sketch now, which I like.
You're just learning all of them.
Yeah, I'm all of. And we did, for the team, we actually bought Figma for some other clients that we had. So we've been using everything. So like we have an account for Figma, we have our XD account. I do like XD's prototyping features, though I will say like that's probably a little easier to use than Figma's. But now I'm in Sketch, so I'm just like all over, but I have been enjoying it because it feels so much more intuitive and it reminds me a lot more of Figma than XD did. Yeah. So I caught onto it like much quicker, way less anxiety about the design, about Sketch than I had about Adobe XD.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. So tell us about where you're at now. Like, how long have you been at the job? Are you still feeling like positive about it? What is your current state?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I've been there now for 7 months and I absolutely love my company, I love my job, like both. Like I feel like this has just been the perfect fit for me. And I have learned so much and I feel like I've grown so much. We're very like A/B testing heavy at my company. So bringing me onto this team has really been a big push for us to advocate for more user research and UX research. So that's been a big initiative, like my manager and we've been working on, and our team is really pushing for that. So what we do a lot of times is that we'll do a lot of analytics like heat mapping, and then we might use that to help drive our strategy for how we're going to optimize the website from a user experience perspective, also through a conversion rate optimization lens. So the goal is that we obviously want to get our clients more inquiries to their website, more applicants to the university, but it has to be, we do it through this user experience perspective. So I've done A/B testing. I just got to do some tree testing, which was super great, kind of, seeing how the navigation works, and also then doing a secondary test to that, implementing the changes that I recommended. So super fun, and like saw improvements in the data. So like what I do is very, very data driven, but our real next phase is really to push more observational research and interviews to really understand why users are or not doing what we want them to do. And we even brought in like a big name like UX person to like consult our company, because people are just like, what is UX? Like, what is it? How does that work with CRO? Like people just don't know. Yeah. So it's like
almost the same thing. Like people just know CRO, and it's like, if you have a good experience, you'll hopefully convert, right? Right. But yeah, that's interesting that you all did that. That's awesome. Super happy to hear that you're doing well. Do you have anything else you want to share before I ask you one closing question?
Yeah. One thing I would say is, don't give up on it. Like if you feel like whoever's listening to this, you feel like it's challenging, like, yeah, there's going to be days where it's tough, but if you feel passionate about this, like your time will come. And I know like the economy is really tough right now, but when people see how driven you are and they see how well you can communicate your experience and you can really speak to the impact that it's had, like those doors will open when it's your time. So just hang in there.
That's great. So my last question is for those of you listening, for those listening that are considering a career change, but maybe haven't taken the leap yet. What's one piece of advice that you would give them, or maybe you would have given yourself before you decided to kind of make that leap and start learning?
Right. I think the biggest thing is really like, what do you see yourself doing? What do you picture your lifestyle is going to be? For me, in a physical sense, I was in a classroom every day and I was giving and pouring out and doing such wonderful work, but I was also being so drained as well. And I knew I still wanted to have like a large impact at a large scale. And I wanted to find that what that was. So I would say like UX is definitely has a plethora of opportunity where you can have change. Even though you start off at a smaller scale, like you can eventually level up and have that change at a bigger scale. And there's so many like specialties within UX that you can niche down into the further you go along, or if management is more your thing, you have that opportunity as well. So just really picture like what you want for your life. And if that really involves having a job you're passionate about, where you get to be creative and analytical and work together as a team, then UX is the right fit, and go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that helps a ton of people listening. Thank you for joining us today. Really, really appreciate you